Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the moderator of the session, Anett Numa.
So in the last couple of years, we have seen a massive improvement in the development of AI technologies. What some of the states have done is that they have really rushed to develop this technology, and the others, well, simply just regulating this technology. There is no surprise that authoritarian regimes have really used this technology for their own goods. Thinking about like how they are also managing their people, also tracking their movements, their behaviors, their communication methods. So I'm telling you that also the democratic systems are not too immune to it either. But how to maintain that the transparency and protect of civil rights, and of course also how we could avoid the coordinated misinformation, or and I could also bring it out the hybrid warfare and tightening the state control of information flow and public opinion. At the same time, it's very, very important that we will try to find a balance between regulating and also pushing innovation. So today, I'm going to have 3 experts joining me here on the stage. So we had a very last-minute cancellation by Sebastian Kurz. So I'm very, very happy to welcome 3 of our experts to join me here on the stage. So if I may start with introductions as well, with the names and everything. So actually, I choose to go a little bit simpler, more simple way. That is also very much related to our topic here today. So I decided to use ChatGPT in order to help me to create your backgrounds and introductions. So just to let you know, everybody here in the room, this wasn't done by me, but ChatGPT. So it's a little bit funny, and I hope that nobody is going to get insulted here. So you ready? All right, so the first person that I'm gonna, or the ChatGPT, help me to introduce. So meet Robert Ivanschitz, who is the genius behind Microsoft Magic. With his coding and tech skills, he is like a real life Dumbledore, I don't know what it is, of the digital kingdom. Brace yourself for a thrilling journey into the world of innovation where Robert's spells of success are cast. Do you agree with this?
Well, Professor Dumbledore died, so I hope that ChatGPT is not going to kill me in the process. But yeah, it's a nice way. I mean, thank you for doing this, and it's a nice way to be introduced.
All right, wonderful. Then let's move on to Richard Marko. Get ready to witness the cybersecurity superhero, Richard Marko, who is the CEO of ESET, swooping in to protect the digital world from cyber villains. With his sharp intellect and firewall determination, he is here to make hackers tremble and viruses quiver. Prepare to be amazed as Richard battles the forces of cybercrime, one line of a code at a time. Would you agree with this as well?
Well, I couldn't say it better.
Yeah? All right, then we'll say a thank you to ChatGPT. All right, and last but not least, Secretary Chertoff. Introducing Michael Chertoff, who is the mastermind behind the Chertoff Group, where security meets strategy in the most captivating dance. With his sharp instincts and a poker face that could rival James Bond. He is here to navigate the labyrinth of global risks and unveil the secrets of effective protection. What can you say about this? Are you like it, James Bond? Do you feel yourself?
Yeah, I like that. I wish I could look like Daniel Craig. It's okay. The next iteration will have he looks like Daniel Craig.
All right. Then the next time I will ask you to generate another introduction also. Let's see what comes from there. All right. But to kick it off our panel discussion here, the very first question, then I want a very concrete and a very short answer from your side. Do you see AI technology more as a threat or opportunity to democracy? Let's start from here.
Well, let me first thank you for inviting us and for being here in the beautiful city of Bratislava. So it's my first time, hope it's not the last one. I think there is no coincidence that the title of this section is AI and Democracy. I think that's a beautiful coincidence. It's beautiful in terms of what AI can do to foster democracy. So if you ask me, a technology can always be used both as a tool and both as a weapon. But I will invite everybody to see AI as a way to enhance democratic way, because at the end of the story, it will thrive if we're living in systems with rule of law. And I'm an honest believer that artificial intelligence systems, they are here to stay, and they're here to improve, and they're here to add more transparency in the way of how our democracies work.
All right.
It's just for me.
All right. So if you put the scale, a threat or opportunity, AI?
Well, opportunity. Well, is intelligence in general a threat, opportunity, or threat to democracy? And probably, well, I'm an optimist, and I see in general AI is a kind of very interesting and beautiful opportunity. So yeah, I'm on this side.
That's the first time that I hear somebody using the word beautiful describing AI. And
I think that in the short run, it may turn out to be, I would say, a challenge rather than a threat. If we are able to plan ways in which to adapt it to actually make our democracy stronger, it can become a positive. But it's like anything else. You know, an automobile can be used for bank robbers to rob a bank. It can also be used for the police to catch the bank robbers. So the key is how we deploy it, and I think that's going to depend a little bit on what our laws are, but more than that, what our strategy is.
Mm-hmm. So if we continue talking about the strategies and the laws, I work in an organization that makes sure that regulations are removed. So I'm never been the person who likes to regulate things too much, and we see that the EU is taking very large steps, of course, seeing again AI as a threat coming to the market in order to regulate this thing. So what would be your suggestions for also policymakers, let's say in the European Commission and different states, especially, like how to find this balance, as I also brought it out in the opening remarks, between like over-regulating and making sure that we have the security there?
That's a very good question. I think that almost everybody will agree that regulation is needed. And Microsoft has been a big supporter of having AI and having a wise regulation that will also improve the economies and will, move technology forward. On Thursday, our president and co-chair, Brad Smith, released a document, Microsoft released a comment called about inviting to think about AI governance, and set down 5 principles that we to put into the table for governments, companies, and the actors to consider. So for a mindful regulation to take place, we do believe that maybe the first principle is about, let's not start from scratch. I think that we do have certain texts and certain acts that can inspire a conversation. One is the one presented by the NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies in the United States, which is part of the Department of Commerce. Then second, I think we need to be mindful about to somehow regulate more carefully certain areas of AI where it can have a deeper impact, like critical infrastructure. I think third, it has to be a regulation that really be transparent and invite different actors to have an opinion. So how we basically share the content that we have and how the technology works, so people get educated and can regulate or something they understand, and that's why we are releasing AI transparency report at the end of the year. And finally, I think that it is one of those areas where public-private partnership has a lot to say. So I think that the government, the companies, the civil actors, NGOs, leaders of opinion, they need to go together, they need to be together, and they really need to have a dialogue and try to find what is the right level of regulation.
Yeah, later on I definitely want to come back to the point of like the collaboration between the private and public sector as well in terms of regulating this. But do you feel, just to follow Christian and then we will move on here, do you feel that in a society there is enough knowledge about the AI, like in general? Because I hear people discussing about AI every other day. I heard you having a breakfast also this morning about discussing the future of AI. But do you feel like in general, like the society really does understand what's AI and what's the background there? Or is it just like in our minds that we're just imagining something else?
It's a new technology. I think there is a lot of room to learn more, to get educated more. And I think that the more we use the product, the more we feel comfortable. At the end, we're only going to use technology we really trust, technology we understand. So if we don't understand without trust, of course, there's going to be more room to be educated. But we're starting the journey. I really like what Richard said about this is a journey, and I think we're starting about it.
If we continue on the journey, also thinking about the use of the AI, for example, in cybersecurity. I have the background from that field as well, so of course also it matters a lot to me when it comes to also AI-regulated things in cybersecurity as well. Do you see what's the future in that sector, especially like are we talking about enough about the AI use in cybersecurity? Because when we, for example, bring it out like what China is doing, what countries like Singapore and Israel are developing currently also on the AI, are we going to see in a couple of years a time where the cyber also attacks are happening because they're generated by the AI technology?
Well, I will say that I see AI more as a tool, not so much as an entity on its own. So it's a powerful tool. It can amplify certain issues, problems, but probably we need to see those fundamental problems first, and then we can kind of better understand what is the impact of using AI. So regarding usage of AI in cyber security, so one thing is it's already happening. We are using quite a lot of AI in our work, not like ChatGPT, but like our own models and our own processing of data. And so we have enough evidence that it's already being used by the attacker. So it's not like something that is only going to happen, it's already happening. And then when we come to the topic of regulation, we obviously need to realize that the regulation applied to legal entities like companies, individuals that are kind of existing like real entities. But if the attackers, they are living in the world where the law doesn't apply, the regulations don't apply, so then we probably obviously need to be careful not to regulate too much the defense when the offense is not regulated.
I also want to remind you, our audience both here in the room and also people joining us online, that you also have a chance to ask questions. I can already see one very interesting question coming your way, but I will get to that in a second. To wake the audience up a little, and we have talked about ChatGPT a lot here. How many of you here in the room, if you can raise the hands, are using ChatGPT for either work or fun everyday basis? So we see a lot of hands. I would say it's around 25% approximately from the audience. Anyway, so continuing over here as well. When we think about also the role of AI when it comes to shaping the information space as well, I think the US has also seen a lot of different kind of misinformation campaigns generated by the AI technology as well. What do you think? What could be the right tool for like stopping this kind of things to happen, or like also a tool, or do you think that AI is becoming the main tool for future mis and disinformation campaigns, for especially also in politics, for example?
Well, I think AI is certainly going to be a tool that is useful for disinformation campaigns in a couple of respects. And I want to make sure that we don't just treat AI as ChatGPT, because it's broader than that. I think what we've seen already in the last 10 years or so is the use of machine learning algorithms as a way of targeting very specifically the audience for individual messages being sent by politicians who want to get people either to believe something that's untrue or disbelieve something that is true. And I mean particularly foreign adversaries. And the ability to get down to granular data levels of people who are online in order to shape the message in a way that will hook their interest and be compelling is a tool we've already seen going forward. Now, another version of this is going to be when videos and audios become sophisticated enough with deep fakes that you can no longer say you have to believe your own eyes and your own ears because they won't be trustworthy. And that's going to be an issue. Now, how do we deal with those issues? Well, on the first, which is the targeting and the algorithms, I think we need to look at the way in which data can be used and exploited and gathered particularly again by foreign adversaries. And this is one of the reasons you've seen a lot of controversy around, for example, TikTok. The concern that Chinese are accumulating data and are going to use it for influence campaigns. So that's one set of issues in terms of data. A second, in terms of determining or giving people the tools they need to determine whether a video or audio is real or genuine, there are a couple of things we need to look at. One is there a way to watermark or otherwise validate a video or photograph when it's made or taken, such that an artificial means will not be able to duplicate it down to that level of granularity. That's a little bit like guaranteeing something by having an intrinsic quality in the photograph. And then the interesting question, I think, is whether artificial intelligence may become a defense to deep fakes. Whether looking at, again, the individual pixels in a photo or video using artificial intelligence will allow you to say this is probably not real, or whether a video supposedly taken, let's say in Bratislava on May 29th, can be discredited because it turns out that at 2:30 p.m., when we're shown on the video, we were actually not in this room, but we were actually putting on our microphones in another room. And that's another way AI can work. So like with anything else, there are some risks, but if we think strategically, there's some positive benefits.
Yeah. He was briefly talking about also the dictator case by China, and like when we we had a discussion before coming here as well, how much more China is actually investing into developing AI models as well, and then especially it's used also when we talk about the algorithms, for example, like in TikTok, so that they're actually spreading like us here in the Western world, very just kind of this kind of information that is just fun to watch and actually doesn't give us anything, and especially also some wrong information. And for their own people in China, it's more educational thing, so that their society can, just get more knowledge in different kind of fields. So should we look more what China is doing, be very concerned about what's happening there, or how do you feel?
Well, I think China certainly has the capacity, and the political will, and the resources to be a leader on AI, and I think they are. It's a couple of interesting points to address to as well. It's AI, like any, or if we talk about ChatGPT, any large language model relies on data. And the more data you have, the more data you feed in the system, the more accurate. And like with certain guardrails, you have to guide the system to work in certain ways. And the Chinese, they might have the large problem about how much control they want to the data. So how much they collect the data, how they process the data, and how they use this to create their own LLMs. When the internet in general, when internet in the 90s was developed, some people thought that China would have not been, like really an actor, because they want to control and they want to provide, like a sort of vision of the world, and the internet will not allow them to enhance and to promote that vision of the world. But they built guardrails in a way that they really took the full advantage of the internet. So I think that while they might face certain challenges to have the kind of AI that we're talking about here, they did it before, so they can do it, like again. Now, how they use it, I think there is no secret to anybody that China is one of the main countries that they use technology in certain ways to harm or to direct and to misinform. I mean, the others one being Iran and Russia, and the risk is there. And I think that we are starting to see, by public information, that the Chinese are going to be very active, and they want to play a very active role in the future. Whether they're going to be successful, I mean, we'll see.
Time will tell.
History will tell.
All right, we've been talking about, and just before I will get to the question that is also meant for you here, but there is already a couple of questions. And then once again, anybody here in the room as well, if you have a question, raise your hand, and then we can also address these things. But very quickly, just a very quick round, a couple of just words. We've been talking about especially the threats coming from the use of AI. What are the biggest advantages? Are there any case studies that you can say that the AI technology has really shifted something on a very, very positive direction in these days as well? Let's do a very quick round, 30 seconds, and then we'll get to the questions.
I mean, maybe there are studies that say that. I don't think we've had it for long enough and it's been accurate enough for us to actually positively, present a use case. I certainly see some possibilities. I mean, one of the issues is, for example, on screening people in terms of getting on airplanes or crossing borders, the ability to use AI, particularly to look at what they may be doing online, may allow for much speedier resolution of claims to asylum or things of that sort. One of the issues that's come up in the United States, as you probably know, is this airman, Texera, who leaked a huge amount of classified information that he had access to because he was an IT administrator, and he simply put a lot of this out on the internet. And I wonder whether his behavioral patterns, had you applied AI to his online behavior, would have indicated an anomaly, which is why I think cybersecurity can be a beneficiary. But again, it's not mature enough yet for us to be highly confident, so I think we have to proceed cautiously with the use cases.
30 seconds.
Well, wherever you have a lot of data to process, there is a good chance the AI will help you. So a very good example could be the AlphaFold, like the ability to predict how the proteins are being, what is the structure, the shape of the proteins based on the gene sequence. I think that must be a big achievement for AI. And in cybersecurity, that's exactly the place. You have a lot of data coming all the time, and it's not a typical task for a human brain. So we are able to employ AI very successfully. Yeah.
Your favorite cases of the use of AI?
I will say that AI can be a game changer in terms of healthcare, in terms of like how you manage the information, how you help like to take the right decisions, how you put different cases that were not accessible before, that now they are real and doctors can take a final decision. But we should never forget that it will be good as the person applying it will apply. So I think that it's important that even if we talk about healthcare, about things that are very personal, that they really touch the human life and the human experience, they have to be a human person at the end making the decision. So AI can help, can enhance, can put things together. I think that can open eyes. But at the end, it has to be the doctor, it has to be the nurse, it has to be the caregiver, the ones that really need to take the decision. But healthcare for me looks like the most promising, or maybe the ones that motivate me the most.
Yeah, I would have brought it out as well, because in Estonia right now, this is like the most blooming sector, I would say, the use of AI in the healthcare sector. And besides this, even like you said, there has to be the human who is making the last decisions. We also use AI, for example, a lot in courts, in the most simple cases. So also to make sure that our people who work in the courts can actually focus on the outcome of the cases, and all this kind of paperwork is already replaced by the AI. But yeah.
Can I compliment? And when you talk about the administration of justice, I think that it was mentioned here before. AI is not something that it was released by Sam Altman like in 2022, and then suddenly, AI, we've been using AI since the times of Alan Turing, and for decades. It's now that for a combination of factors, it's really real. But when it comes to the administration of justice, for example, there are projects, and that's my background. I'm from Chile. I used to work many years in Latin America, and there are cases in Mexico where people who are not fluent of the Spanish language, through AI-assisted translators and then through AI-assisted processes, have helped to communicate with the judge, making the access to justice for communities that were completely forgotten real. It's not perfect. No, it's not perfect. There is some resistance. It is costly. And I saw the question coming about the NGOs, but when you partner with the right people, with the right NGOs, and you bring the right technology, you can really have an impact on those very few cases. Then hopefully, through the scalability of the model, then it will become much more frequent and common, not only in Mexico, but around the world we have faced similar challenges.
Right. So I would take the question that has the most votes as well here, somebody called Magnus, who asked us the question, what's your opinion on the call for AI pause signed by Elon Musk, Max Tegmark, and multiple other stakeholders as well? wants to go for that one here?
Well,
you like to talk.
I like that one because, I mean, now Elon Musk has his own AI company. So I think that answered the whole question. But on a more serious note, I think it's always good to reflect and to pause while you're advancing. It's like when I'm a soccer fan, it's like you're in the middle of the field and you see these great players and they stop the ball and they look where, like the field the other players are, and they went through and they move forward because you have to score a goal. I think if we think about AI pause in that respect, I think it's more welcome. If you think about, let's to stop this for 6 months, and then you see the same people like calling for that, taking some actions that contradict the message, I think you have your answer by yourself.
Do we need to have an AI pause?
No, I think it's a wrong suggestion. What is the pause in AI? Like what we see today, in my opinion, is just availability of lot of data and availability of lots of computational power. It's not about some systematic breakthroughs in the way we design those systems. They are bigger. The models have more neurons. They have more connections. We are able to calculate these kind of things now, and we were not able to do it in the past. But I mean, like, what is really paused? Like, what? Like, I can't imagine what it could be. So I wouldn't agree at all.
Should we stop innovation?
I think the value of a pause would be limited. I mean, it obviously it would make sense if you're going to regulate to look at what you want to regulate and then make sure you apply it in a way that still works with AI. But the truth is the bad guys are going to continue to work on AI for nefarious purposes. I'm quite sure in Moscow and St. Petersburg, they're not going to stop researching for ways to weaponize it. So I don't want to disarm unilaterally. And I do think AI may be a defensive tool as well as an offensive tool.
All right, I will take another question from somebody who does not have a name. So what do the panelists think about the concerns of existential risk from misaligned AI, as several AI researchers have been vocally warning? Anybody?
Well, I think it's a similar question to the previous one. I would say there's a lot of misinformation about the AI. And AI is, together with a string theory, quantum computing, these kind of things, a field that is very difficult for most of us to kind of understand and to have a good knowledge about. So it's then down to relatively few people who really know what it is all about. And so you can create whatever myths, nonsense around it. So of course, different people can have different opinions, but even though in general I'm very optimistic about things and I like the technological progress and so on, I just don't see, despite the things like ChatGPT, that we are approaching a moment when AI will suddenly start to be aware and then rule us all. I don't think this is what is happening here. So it's more like a very powerful tool, not that can be misused, obviously, but not a thing that exists on its own and is going to destroy the world.
There is another question coming from our audience. Somebody called Nia. I asked a question that I actually very much like. So AI and tech is an opportunity or a threat to depending on how is it used. And okay, it jumped here. How is it used? But what are the companies doing to take accountability about the disinformation generate with the advance of AI? And how can civil society keep up with this, Michael?
So first, I want to follow up for a second on the issue of existential threat. I mean, to me, the existential threat would exist only if we cede to AI decision-making authority in certain domains. As long as a human being has the final say on whether you're going to launch a missile or take some kind of kinetic action or cyber attack, you have a break. If some misguided country were to turn the nuclear codes over to AI, then it would be like the Terminator movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. In terms of what companies are doing, I think there are a couple of areas that companies can play a role, whether they do it voluntarily or they get induced to do it by regulation. One is, again, on regulating the way in which data is fed to third parties so they can use it to develop AI, because that is the basic fuel. And the other is disclosure. To the extent that you have an awareness that something is artificial, a video or an audio or something of that sort, I'm not taking the position that you ought to take it off the platform, but it ought to be clearly labeled. We know this is a artificially intelligence generated video. When I look at the whole question of how we deal with AI, it really comes down to the 3 Ds. Data, who gets the data, how do they use the data? Disclosure, when we do know something is artificial, do we disclose it to the user? And finally, decision making. Who gets to make decisions about matters of great consequence? Is it AI or is it finally a human being? Those are the 3, to me, critical questions for how we look at this new technology.
Mm-hmm. As we also have all of you guys here from like private sector perspective as well right now, with different backgrounds. Especially we discussed this a little bit about already, like how the EU is like, especially the organization who is trying to regulate a lot of things, and especially I would say always like leading to the discussion of the regulation as well. Shouldn't we have the fear that the big, like the tech companies are going to leave from here?
No, I will say it's going to be a mistake if you leave the European Union. We're here for many years, and we're investing. I mean, just was a couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure to be in the opening of a data center in Poland. And we're not only investing in Europe, we're investing in Eastern Europe as well. And I think that the dialogue that the EU has invited all of us through the AI Act, it's a welcoming dialogue. I mean, there are different ways you approach to regulations. I mean, the United States, they do in certain ways. The Chinese are looking for their own ways. And I think that the approach that the European Union is taking based on risk and different levels, I mean, it's a legitimate approach. We will welcome to be invited into the discussion. I think that we're not there yet. I mean, I think it's the way the companies will go and make like known their opinions. It's coming, and I hope it's going to be a lively debate. It's going to be a democratic debate, and the results are going to be the results of a democratic process. And we should not fear democracy. We should not fear the rule of law. So I'm confident that whatever the result is, we as a company will be make our opinion known, and we will work to keep our investments here and develop AI as a tool and not as a weapon inside.
So how do you feel? Is there a fear, or especially like even if we don't talk about like the leaving the EU in a way, but mostly like investments, because that's also something that is especially very important. Like when I talk about my own country's perspective here, like coming from a very small country where every investment is important to keep the economic system up, then how do you feel about that?
Right, so sometimes we say that people vote with their legs, right? And so I lived in this country when it was behind the Iron Curtain, and obviously we didn't know that much about how exactly the life looks like in the Western world or the rest of the world, but it somehow felt like it's more interesting, and many of the best people just left or fled and became very successful there. So coming back to the question, I would say that regulation is something that we learned over the history that is needed for the communities to live together. But if the regulation is right, then maybe some of the big tech companies might decide to leave. But if the people from the rest of the world will be happy to come to EU exactly because of that they are not victims of some unregulated AI, then we can say that it doesn't matter and it's probably a good thing. But I'm talking about extreme just to give an indication the way I'm looking at it. Like, we need to find the right balance here.
Speaking of finding the right balance, there is also the question that I would like to address to you as well. Very, very simple question. Is there something that really scares you regarding the use of AI? What, on the other hand, can be very beneficial for the mankind?
Well, I think I worry most about two things. One is that someone will make the misguided decision to let the artificial intelligence make decisions on life and death matters. I don't have the confidence that AI or machine learning is anywhere near the point of being able to do that. But I also worry about our democracy. There was a video posted, I think yesterday or today, by Trump supporters that shows a reasonably good facsimile of Hillary Clinton in a video endorsing Ron DeSantis. Now, if you look at it closely, the locutions seem a little bit off. And then there's a reference at the end to a Marvel comic phrase, "Hail Hydra," which is a giveaway that it's obviously not real. But I could easily see videos, deepfake videos and audios creating even more of a climate of mistrust and allergy to the truth than we have now. And to me, that erodes the foundation of democracy. If you can't agree on what facts are and you can't trust your institutions, whether they be public or private, then it's very hard to have a democracy. And that, I think, is my real concern.
Mm-hmm. But when we talk about also in general, like we haven't touched the topic of defense, and of course with the Ukrainian war right now happening, we see the role of AI also becoming more and more important also in the defense sector. So how do you feel as well? Because in my opinion, like these countries who have already developed also AI technology in the defense sector are the ones that are going to be also very successful in the battlefield. What's your opinion? Like what kind of role is the AI going to play, especially in the battlefields in the future?
Let me, Anett, answer maybe the question a little bit more broadly. I think that it is fair to say that in times of war, technology advances faster. I mean, we saw it, for those of you who love the movies, I mean, it's all about that, Project Enigma. I mean, how the UK government, the British government put scientists to work to create a model that will learn and uncodify the Nazi, communication system. So that was the point of the computer. I mean, that was important, how the computers were born, and the first software maybe. So, and we can see also that now with the war in Ukraine and the Russian invasions to Ukraine, there is a more investment in technology. And of course, technology can be used, as a way of attack, and it can be used as a way of defense. If we really create, and that's what I would like, again, to encourage the use of the rule of law concept. I think that we need to make a coalition between companies, between democratic elected governments, between NGOs that really protect the right to vote and protect the freedom of speech, etc. We need to act faster than those that they really would like to attack the system. And we have proven we can do so. I think Ukraine is a good example where the cyber attacks, the war started earlier than the end of February. The war started 2 or 3 days before, when the Russians started consistently attacking the cybersecurity defenses of the Ukrainian. And they stilled. And they reacted well. And there was a real an effort by governments, by institutions, by private companies to try to go defense, understand, to learn the language that we were receiving in a way that this attack reacted or produced a defense, and that defense produced an attack, and by that, leave the integrity of the system. Of course, there were violations on that, and there were some threats that might have succeeded, but I do think that if we put together and everybody understand the role that we have, we will be able to defend those attacks, but certainly the risk is there.
Any comments based on the defense sector, and then we can move?
No, I think. Look, there's obviously some clear use cases in terms of determining your battlefield intelligence, and even longer term, what the enemy's plans may be and how they're organizing themselves and supplying themselves. Again, I come back only to one point. It's terrific to have analytical capabilities to absorb huge amounts of data and make intelligence judgments. But at the end of the day, a human being has to make the judgment. I'm not ready to concede that to a machine.
All right. So I will take the two last questions here from the audience, and then we can slowly starting to wrap it up as well here. And once again, actually, let's take a question from the audience here in person. So somebody can give the microphone for this gentleman there.
Hello, my name is Marian Gastik from GeForce. Very good debate, thank you so much. My question is beyond AI. AI seems like an important tool and also potentially dangerous, but in the same way that World War II was won by a technological supremacy tool, the nuclear weapons, one of the areas which is not talked about very much is quantum cryptography and its potential danger and power. And Richard, you to blame for this space, because the ESET was organizing a great debate 2 weeks ago with a Nobel Prize winner and with Tony Fadell, who was instrumental in iPad and iPod. And we had a debate there after the talk about how powerful this could be. And my question is to all the panelists about, are you doing anything in the space of quantum cryptography in the way of defending or potentially using it as a tool to end wars, or doing something along the lines of making the world more secure from the near-term perspective?
Richard.
Thank you.
Well, I used the word tool several times already, so I will probably need to use it again. Cryptography is a tool, right, to deliver some kind of message or information from one place to another, and avoiding that somebody else is able to read it in the middle. So from this perspective, it looks like, and that's the important thing, like there are facts and there are opinions. Regarding the quantum computing, how powerful it is, we don't have a definitive answer. We don't know if it's going to be more powerful than compared to traditional computing. But it looks like there is, let's say, a good indication that it could be, and at a minimum that these quantum algorithms will be probably or potentially able to break some of the encryption that we are using right now. So taking this into account, realizing what algorithms already exist, what might be the promise of them being able to crack, is a reasonable thing to take into account and to design algorithms, even though they don't need to be quantum algorithms for encryption or like protection of transmitting lines that will be more protected from this kind of future attacks. So I wouldn't say that the quantum encryption is going to solve the problem, because I think this is not the problem. It's just one of the things that is being used in defense or even in offense. So, yeah.
Any reflections on the answer? Or
it really remind me that needs to be that technology needs to be educated. So I agree with your answer, but not much to say.
Is there anybody here in the room once again with the question before I can? Yeah, there is a hand up here, Patrick. Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much for Mr. Ivanschitz. When I talk to Patrick Tucker from Defense One, when I talk to cybersecurity experts in the United States government and they outline the biggest way that AI might disrupt cybersecurity, they mention systems that are running older versions of operating systems. So not necessarily your bank, not necessarily your government, but school, clinic, your gas company, maybe not the system that runs the pumps, but the system that does the accounting. And most of those vulnerabilities exist in older versions of Microsoft products. So I wonder, from the perspective of Microsoft, is this a conversation that you're having inside the company? And what do you see as your responsibility for those future targets? Thanks.
Well, it's a great question. And when we decided to, in any of our products, any operating system services, and it takes time for us to completely offboard. I mean, we communicate, we encourage people to adopt, and we encourage companies to adopt and to upgrade. I think that sometimes the best defense to technology is technology. Most of the cases that what you see in the news are because someone pushed a button should not have pushed, or accept, like an invitation should not be accepted, or provide information should not have been provided. But when we move to newer versions of our software, we really go well beyond on communicating, inviting, making offers that people and companies will go and upgrade. If you're still running a version of Windows XP, yes, you are going to be vulnerable. And I think there is not much you can do, except that you have been for 15 years inviting and even offering for free to certain NGOs and to certain industries like the one that you have mentioned to upgrade. The reason why some people decided not to do it, I mean, it's beyond my understanding, but yeah, if you have an older version of whatever operating system, whether ours or somewhere else, you're going to be more vulnerable. So it's a very good question. I think it's a good call to really be mindful about it.
So I want to finish with a very good positive note, and I'm a massive believer of technology and especially for better democracy. There is a question, again, we have a very limited time, so I'm asking you to be 30 seconds. So in what ways we can use AI and high-tech tools for better democracy and promote citizen participation in decision-making processes? Let's do a round from here.
I think there are any number of things. I think we can use it for defense and for cybersecurity. I think we can use it for health. I think we can use it to improve our ability to invest and propel the economy forward. And finally, it can be used to identify disinformation, which would undermine democracy.
30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I guess we need to get rid of myths. We need to bring AI back to its roots in basic research in universities and so on, so that it don't end up in a mess of different expectations. But yeah, in the end, if AI is able to show that the people life can be better, that they can live fuller life, then it will help the democracy. If it's going to be the opposite, then it will hurt it.
And the last.
I think that by really help the technology to be more transparent in ways that people will be able to identify what is fake from real, and maybe the way we should invest in the services by helping those who are really using it in a real way to be sure that you understand there's a model that's been created by AI, that it has all the safeguards in place. It can be identified to a certain source. So I mean, maybe instead of fighting so much, which I'm not saying we should not, but we should always promote those who are using the technology in the right way, so people will identify them and use them, and then we should combat those who are trying to advance the deepfakes.
All right, I'd like to finish on a positive note. So from my side, I want to say a massive thank you to Richard, Robert, and Michael for sharing your knowledge here. And let's hope that we will find this lovely bliss point of using the AI and making sure that we don't have the threats coming around the corner, not from China, not from Russia, from anywhere else. So let's do a massive round of applause for our panelists.
And I just hope that someone checks to see how ChatGPT reports on this panel.
Let's see that later. So once again, thank you very much, and please do stay here in the room. There is another session just starting in a second about Ukraine's way of Brussels, if I'm correct with the title. So stay here, and once again, thank you very much.